Right, hi, it's Paul Green with another one of our Focus On panels. These are regular live stream sessions where we look at a particular topic that hopefully is of interest to small businesses out there. And yeah, 11 o'clock every Tuesday. So if you're watching this live, feel free to put any comments in the chat as you see fit, or on your whatever platform you're tuning in on. And likewise, if you're watching a replay, do the same. So before we crack on, let's just sort of like go around the room and let my guests today introduce themselves. So Mark.
Yeah, I'm Mark Coster. I'm from Pixuma. It's a virtual creative agency. So graphic design is the core of what I do, but I work with trusted outsourced partners to provide a more full creative service.
Fair enough. Christina.
So yeah, Christina from Green Umbrella Marketing. We are a digital marketing agency specialising in social media for small business. So we help business owners that lack the time, the enthusiasm or the courage to stand out online.
Okay, thank you very much. Eleanor.
I'm Eleanor Lester from Shrewd PR. I'm a PR and marketing consultant, and I work with small and micro businesses to help them with all elements of their communication. So whether that be social media, PR, marketing, etc. So there you go.
And we've got one viewer who's just sort of waved to us. So thanks for that, Richard. Thanks for tuning in. So as you can see from the little ticker going on the bottom, what we're going to talk about is how important is social media marketing for small businesses. So that is the topic. So I'm going to be exploring that with you. So why don't we just sort of answer that basic question? I'll start with you, Mark, because you're not a social media expert or marketer specifically, but I know you use social media quite prolifically. Is that a word? It is now.
It is a word.
So,
yeah.
So do you want to just give us, as a small business, how you find social media, what it does for you, maybe what it doesn't do for you, and anything else that you want to add, basically?
Yeah, it's interesting that you use the word prolifically, even though I couldn't say it. And somebody else in a meeting I've just come out of said that I was very effective with my social media. So I don't see it necessarily that way. I think that when I do it, I do hopefully quite a good job, but I don't feel I'm consistent. I don't follow my own advice and think consistent enough and how I do it. But I think essentially my feeling is that there are probably businesses a bit like websites. Probably a business where you don't necessarily need to be on social media, but they are few and far between. I suspect the likeliness of being able to run a business without a website is pretty slim. The likeliness of having no social media presence is pretty slim. I would suggest it's going to vary from business to business, and it's obviously a case of not spreading itself too thin. But it's all these different channels, isn't it? About how some of them are more push and some of them are pull. So people want to come to check you out. They might come and have a look at your website, but they get to know the person and the brand a bit better through social media and other channels, sort of podcasting and things like that. I think there's an opportunity for a slightly different perspective on the company, but it's not one way. Social media gives you the opportunity to actually interact with people and demonstrate who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably hear a plane flying over in the background now. Eleanor, what are your views?
I very much agree. I think Mark, you said something about how the fact that yes, definitely all small businesses will be at some point jumping on the bandwagon of social media, but I think that can be a double-edged sword, and it can be very easy to go down a rabbit hole and spend an awful lot of time and not necessarily on the right channel, as I'm sure Christina can attest, and not necessarily doing the right things on the most appropriate channel for your business. So I think if you're looking at it from a marketing perspective, and when we're looking at marketing, we're looking at where our audience is, where they're hanging out and what they're doing, then make sure that the channels you're using are the channels that your audience is using. Because it takes time and effort and ultimately money, because even if you're doing it for yourself, you're still spending time and effort doing it, and that's going to have a cost to your business. And therefore making sure that you are finding the right platform and the right group of followers, I would be saying, and definitely very important. But it's not the be all and the end all, but it is still a very important part of most small businesses' marketing strategy.
Thank you very much. Christina, you dabble a little bit in social media. What would your view be?
I was going to say, shall I say, oh no, I think it's a waste of time. Don't bother. Okay, so here's the thing. If you know where your business is going, if you know what you want out of it, social media is probably the most important part of your marketing strategy. Okay. Now, I'm saying that Eleanor is right. It's not the be all and end all. It is the thing that holds everything else together. So let's say, for example, you are launching something, you've worked with Mark, you've had some fantastic designs done around this product or service. You're now going to use your social media to get that message out there. You've worked with Eleanor, you've got some PR activity out there. You're in mainstream publications. Again, you're going to use your social media to get the message out there, to show everyone that's what's happening. You are going to use social media to evidence the fact that you're actually good at what you do. Because we could also, like I say, I'm the best when it comes to digital marketing. Mark's the best designer. But where's the evidence? Okay, now we can use our social media to create that evidence, whether that's us producing it or us encouraging our audience to put those testimonials out there, to put those shout outs, those thank yous out there. For me, like all businesses, whether whether you're corporate or you're a solo operator, social media is the thing that really levels the playing field. Okay, we can all go live on LinkedIn, we can all post on Facebook, we can all do a reel on Instagram or create a TikTok. We've all got those tools available to us. Now, okay, yes, as your business grows, you can put budget behind it and get that message going out there further. But like I said, when it comes to day one of setting up your business, social media is probably the most accessible tool for you. And it is, like I said, Mark and Eleanor both raised really important points, because it's easy to get distracted by the shiny stuff. It's easy to get overwhelmed because you get 100 people like me telling you this is the best strategy, and that's where the double-edged sword comes in that Eleanor mentioned, because if you don't remain super focused, it can actually do the opposite for you.
Yeah, I guess the important word there, one of the important ones, they're all important words, Christina, but the one that I picked out was the strategy one, because I guess like any business, you should have a strategy about where your business is going, and that should permeate down, I guess, to whichever social media platforms you're on, so you know what you're doing on there rather than just sort of dipping in and dipping out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm such a big, so you should have an overall objectives when it comes to marketing, but then each of your social media channels, sometimes you're going to have different objectives for those. So like I always say about Instagram, for us, Instagram is a tool where it's purely about reassurance. Okay. If you wanted someone to help you with your social media today, would you work with a social media agency that doesn't use Instagram?
No, not really. No.
Yeah.
I think it's highly unlikely we'll ever get business through Instagram because of who our ideal client is. But the fact that we're active on there reassures people that we know what we're talking about, because we do work with people where Instagram is the best place for them to be, where they will get leads, where that is the right thing for their business. So, like I said, it's, because of that, we put less effort into Instagram versus the effort we put into LinkedIn, for example.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Eleanor, you've been in PR for a number of years. I won't give away the exact amount of years. You can if you wish. So has social media been a benefit to you as a PR person? Has that opened
Absolutely. Totally. I mean, as you rightly say, I have been in the game for a long time, and I remember years ago a client coming to me and said, "Oh, we've got this newfangled thing called Twitter. What do you think about it?" And at the time, we said, "Okay, well, let's dabble. Let's do a little bit, but let's not put all our eggs in one basket." And actually, for them, it probably wasn't quite the right platform. However, with the advent of social media has allowed the ability for businesses and brands to get in front of their ideal audience to be much, much easier. But also, those sort of additional people, the heroes for your brand, or the people that you want to work with, who then become advocates, or the personalities who start shouting about it, if you can get their attention for your brand whilst you're on social media, and then they start to reshare your content, that from a PR perspective is as good as getting the front page of the Daily Mail. I mean, let's face it, if you could get the likes of Kate Lawler talking about your product, who needs the Daily Mail in that sense? Because you've got your influencer talking about it on your behalf. So very definitely it is a very beneficial marketing tool, and it has changed dramatically, and it's changed the face of PR particularly because of that. But it's also given customers an option of getting to a brand and expressing an opinion very quickly, very easily, not always to the benefit of the brand. And that's the other thing I would say, is the fact that if you're going to be using it for marketing, you're going to need to be prepared to take the rough with the smooth. And have strategies in place, and people like Christina and myself can give advice and strategies as to how to deal with that. But I would be advising anybody to be prepared for the fact that it's never going to be a bed of roses, and just be prepared for the occasional face plant of head and stuff like that, basically. But yeah, no, very important.
So Mark, Christina and Eleanor both touched on the time aspect of engaging on social media platforms. So how do you manage it for you, so you don't sort of spend all day, going down a rabbit hole on Facebook or something?
Well, there's two things that, going down a rabbit hole on Facebook, just scrolling it. I used to do that. I was saying to somebody the other day, that was the first thing I did when I switched the computer on in the morning, and I spent 20 minutes doing that, and I think I've not achieved anything by just randomly scrolling this stuff. So you've got to sort of be aware of your own, I'm sure we all do this, where I go into LinkedIn with a specific purpose I'm looking up somebody, or I've got to look at post, whatever, and then you get distracted by the feed, go through all the stuff. So you've got to balance it, be aware of those things. But in terms of putting stuff on there as well, I tend to just have stuff in my CRM which reminds me to do specific things, which is, and I don't have many of them, which is why I don't feel I necessarily do a lot on social media. I suppose I interact with people, which is, that's the other thing, isn't it? Not just posting. You've got to, and not just scrolling endlessly and paying no attention. You've got to interact and like and comment and share and that sort of thing at appropriate points. But yeah, I have stuff in my CRM which reminds me to do promotions about the groups that I attend. That's the most regular thing that I do, really, is promotion of other things. So by its very nature, I'm promoting me in the background, but it's actually the post is about something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Christina, back to you in the studio. So obviously time is a factor. That's why people, I guess, outsource to you. So you're managing lots of businesses' social media. How do you manage all that? I know you've got a team, but do you have a way of managing all these different social media platforms for all the different clients that you actually have?
Yeah, I mean, so it's system and software. So just from a systems perspective, we have quite a tight framework, if you like, that we educate everyone on in the business. So like, if you're spending more than 30 minutes a day on LinkedIn, you're probably wasting time. Okay, so, and if you kind of take that as a rule across all channels, like 30 minutes a day on Facebook, 30 minutes a day on LinkedIn, you really shouldn't need to spend more than 30 minutes on any channel. Now, in that time, we're creating content, we are doing the engagement piece, and what Mark talked about there is really, really important. There are some days that we always used to call it Tumbleweed Tuesday, like nothing would happen on a Tuesday, like there's just nothing to talk about. We don't want to create content for content's sake, because that's not valuable, that's just noise. And like if you were in a social situation, a bit like me now, when I'm like, I just don't stop talking, like everyone starts to switch off. But like nobody wants to be that person. So on those days, if there's nothing going on, that's where you do more of the engagement. That's when you're doing more to celebrate what other people in your network are sharing. You know, it's the specific strategies that we have that are, you know, okay, Paul Green. Like Paul Green could introduce me to all these people. He needs to be on my hit list. I need Paul Green to know who I am. Well, on the Tumbleweed Tuesday, I'm going to be looking at your content and going, like, what can I engage with? What can I add value to? So that you get that nice little notification to say that I've shown an interest, but also your audience start to see me showing up as well. It's essentially what we do in a physical networking situation. We add value to the room.
Yeah.
That's what we should be doing. But like I said, on the time factor, it really is about, okay, I want to create some content. I want to do some engagement. I need, you know, there's about 7 or 8 things on our list that we do in that 30 minutes. You can't do all the things every day. But I say, if you've got that system, and if you're setting a timer for yourself, so you're really focused, and remove the distractions, okay? And like things like LinkedIn, sometimes the distraction is called an unfollow button.
Very true.
There's nothing wrong with unfollowing people, because actually what they're putting out there is, you know, not serving you. You should keep your CRM. I think we can all agree you need to keep your CRM nice and clean. As far as I'm concerned, LinkedIn is like a second CRM for me. When I look at Facebook and I'm looking at the groups that I'm in and that kind of stuff, that's like a third CRM. I want to keep my feeds as nice and clean as possible.
Yeah, no, that definitely made sense. Yeah, I can see that. So I certainly see social media as networking online, really. You know, there's some similar principles that apply, I think. So what are some of the mistakes that you think, Eleanor, what are some of the mistakes you think small businesses make on social media?
I'm gonna selling too hard, and actually being over. Facebook calls it being overly promotional, but let's face it, a lot of the content that appears sort of in our feeds can be sort of over salesy, and I think also there's a certain fatigue with certain posts that are a bit sort of me too, and sort of trying to show that I'm the best, or look at this wonderful thing that's happened and things like that. And I think that's one of the things that the advent of social media has brought, is the fact that actually we are, as consumers, getting quite a lot more savvy about the content that we're actually looking at. And if we are seeing posts that look a little bit too good, or are shouting about things being so wonderful, it makes you start to wonder actually how good is it for that company and things like that. And I think what I would be saying is make sure you keep it real, because what you want is a group of followers who buy into you and who invest time reading your content, because you are putting stuff out that's quality. And as Christina is saying, don't post every day. If you've got nothing to say, then don't post. Yes, go and look at your friends or your contacts that you network with regularly and see what content they're putting out. Share it. I mean, everybody likes that. I often people are often ask, well, what's the benefit of social media? I said, well, if you view social media basically like ripples in a pond, if you can touch somebody else, they'll then start to see your content, you'll see their content, and it's that virtuous sort of ripple effect that keeps going out.
So Mark, I find when I come across some small businesses, they struggle with content a lot of the time. What was that like for you when you started to venture into social media? How and what did you create so you can have a presence on the different platforms you use?
Well, that's asking a bit with my memory.
Mark, I have every faith in you.
Yeah. I don't know. It is quite. It can be difficult, but I think it's showing your personality. It's opening yourself up a little bit. I think sometimes, showing there's a thing where sort of, people think it's like a weakness to say, oh, I don't know this, or I'm not sure about. Asking questions. If you're not sure about what to post, you could ask a question about something. More often than not, I've been in groups where there's been a discussion about something, and nobody really has the answer to it at that point. And my answer is always pretty much the same: put it out on social media, ask that question, because you'll get that stuff back, and that's a good way to get that stuff out there. I think it's, as Eleanor and Christine were saying, it's about that genuine thing. Don't just post for I've got to post something. Oh, I'll just some random stuff. It's got to be genuine, and it's got to be interesting. Engage somebody. The stuff I do with with your groups, when I'm promoting your groups, it's a bit of a tired trope from my side. But what I tend to do is look at what is on that date. Some weird international day. It's International Pancake Day, or it's International Sit on your head day, or something. I don't know. Some sort of weird thing. And it's anything I think I can get an image out, stick that on there, and grab somebody's attention. Ask a couple of questions about it. What's the most pancakes you've eaten in a day, or whatever. It's just something silly to grab people's attention, and then mention that that's also related to the day. It's extremely cheesy from the way I do it, but it gets attention. It does get comments, good and bad, to say, but when that all helps to just get that stuff across. And I think there's also this thing. It's the big corporates are more susceptible to doing this, but the greenwashing, just sort of making us we're jumping on a bandwagoning. I don't know if that's a word, but
bandwagonitis, I call
bandwagonitis, jumping on something. Oh, we're green because we're doing this, or etc. And I listened to a podcast the other day. I think it was Alan Carr and Joe Lyson. They were talking, and I don't know whether there's an equivalent term, but for pride. So big corporates jumping on and saying, "Oh, we support pride and blah blah blah," but at the same time, their actions somewhere else demonstrate that they don't.
Yeah.
And it's that that sort of thing. I think you've got to be consistent in your marketing generally, but you've got to be consistent in your message of who you actually are as a company, and pick things that fall within that remit.
Yeah, at least the post that you do about these different days, it gives you a chance to use stock images you wouldn't normally use. So
yeah, exactly. Put stuff on there which I wouldn't touch with a barge pole normally.
Yeah. So I know, Christina, you've spoken before, I think written posts on this jumping on the bandwagon. Do you want to say a little bit about that and the dangers of just sort of leaping onto something just because it happens to be the flavour of the day?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think Mark's probably already really said it. It's whether you've sat down and done work on what your purpose is, what your values are, all that kind of stuff. Whether you've done that or not, they exist. So if we're then jumping on the bandwagon with some of this stuff, and it's actually maybe at odds with those values, it's at odds with how we want to be perceived to be, they can actually be quite damaging. And you could get called out. It isn't genuine, it isn't authentic. And to be honest, if you create a version of your logo using the rainbow colours because it was Pride Month, but that's all you do, nobody actually cares. And we want to create content that moves people. We want to create content that people care about. And I think sometimes it's a like with Mark, it works really well because we're always having quirky conversations with Mark. Like we never know what he's going to talk about next. So it makes like when we get to know him. I know. So it makes sense. It's like Mark's talking about Pancake Day. Brilliant. It's just Mark. So it's fitting. But then there are other situations where it's like you've just posted that because you couldn't come up with anything else. And I think this is where for me, it gets really tricky. And I think as your business grows, you're just getting yourself into stickier and stickier and stickier situations if you're then celebrating something that isn't within the culture of your business or isn't right for your client base.
Absolutely.
And this is another thing, like we were talking about what the mistakes that people make.
Yeah.
Making it all about us.
Yeah.
And not about them. So it's, if I want to get the attention of a small business owner with a small team that isn't ready to bring in a marketing manager, let's say, but needs some marketing support, I need to talk about the things that matter to them, not the things that matter to me.
Yeah.
I need to be addressing the things that are keeping them up at night, and saying what they're thinking, really. You know, and I think this we get so caught up in, you know, say we, not me, because I'm perfect. But I think we all come across people, and like it might with some of the branding stuff that you do as well, where they're so transfixed on what they're seeing in the world, they're not actually looking at, okay, well, how do we communicate that as that's the pain of the client, so that they respond to that, actually, Mark understands how I'm feeling about this.
Yeah.
And then because that's how we generate leads through social media. It's not, I recorded a very short video yesterday where basically I said, no one's going to remember you for how many followers you've got.
Absolutely.
We all get hung up on the numbers. I've had this many impressions, I've reached that many, I've got but X number of followers. I'm like, who cares? Are they active leads in your CRM? No. So it's just numbers. You want people to remember you for what you do, how you do it, who you can help. That's how social media becomes money in the bank.
I think in the early days there certainly was that sort of, not necessarily pressure, but the trend was to get as many followers, likes, etc., as you could. That was sort of the only strategy that seemed to exist at the time. And I certainly know now that if I look at my LinkedIn, where, you know, any connection requests I got, I go, oh yeah, that would be an interesting contact. You know, I've got people all over the place that have no relevance to me whatsoever. It's almost like I want to start again and just build a new LinkedIn profile just to cleanse the old one. But yeah, I certainly went down that path of quantity. Likewise on the Facebook page now, I went down a period of actually connecting with businesses on my Facebook page and other random people that I didn't know, and now I'm cleansing that as their birthdays come up. If I don't know them, I'm unfriending them. So that's the way of me cleansing my Facebook.
Do you know, there's people I'm connected to that will they'll shout about how big their network is, and then I'm looking at their network, I'm looking at what's happening on what they put out there, and a lot of people in those networks are just nutters.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they're never gonna, like, they're just there, they're keyboard warriors that just want to slate them, and you know, you kind of think, well, how, okay, so you're shouting about this, like, you know, 500,000, or you know, how, you know, look at some of the influencers and the audience, you know, it's like I've got, you know, millions of followers on Instagram but can't sell a water bottle.
Well, it's Emperor's New Clothes stuff, isn't it? That really, that whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a point there you mentioned about the followers and connecting with people. You know, I always hope, you know, I keep getting, and it's probably going to increase because of the way the algorithm works, but I keep getting connections from generally web developers or other white label agencies in the US, and it just keeps going and going. And every single time it goes through a process of, you know, they'll attempt a connection. You know, they sometimes give a reason, sometimes they don't. And I go through the same process every time thinking, I bet they're going to send me a sales message instantly, but maybe not this time. Maybe, oh no, let's give a chance. Let's not. I mean, I almost do it. Last time it happened, I almost sent them a message saying, you know, happy to connect, but don't send me a sales message, etc. And then I thought, well, that just comes across as a bit, you know, a bit aggressive and that sort of thing. So I'm not going to do that. I accepted the connection within 48 hours. And it's always the same thing. We're based in San Francisco. These are our rates. We can white label you. We can do anything better than for a better rate for you when you're available. And I don't mind. It's still annoying, but I don't mind that there's been variations where they've gone, these are the things to do. No idea if it's any interest to you, but if it is, drop me a line. Happy to be connected. Great to meet with you or whatever. And they don't do anything beyond that. Then the other extreme is the one where they say, this is all the things we do. Love to have a chat with you. Are you available 15 minutes at 2:30 tomorrow?
Yeah, specific. Yeah.
Hang on a minute. You know, and the social media, you know, somebody made a good point about it. The key word is social. You know, you wouldn't walk into a room, hand the business card. Are you available tomorrow at 2:30? You know, it just wouldn't happen. And then I've had one where he sent me that message. I've ignored it. Rather than sort of respond and be a bit negative about it, I'll ignore it. He sent me another one. Oh, I don't know whether, you know, maybe you didn't see my other message. No, I definitely saw it. And then the third one, oh, I'll leave you alone now, but just remind you, I do this stuff. I thought, you don't need to remind me. It's only been a week and we've had 3 messages already.
Yeah.
You know, it's about having a perspective about these things and doing them the right way, I think.
But this is where automation is killing social.
Yeah.
You know, 100%. It's like I would put money on the fact those messages are all automated.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
God, yeah, they're all very, very similar in format. The ones I get from all these different places, and yes, my suspicion is that it's 1 in 10,000 gets a hit or whatever it is, and that's their justification for continuing.
Yeah, they keep doing.
Otherwise.
I mean, I play like a little game inside my head. So some people I just won't connect with because it's just not relevant, and others I think, I wonder if they're going to spam me, and I just do it as a bit of fun now. And if they do, I just unfriend them straight away. Or
Yeah.
straight away. But yes, sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm not. So that's how I entertain my sad little life. Eleanor, you were going to say something. I think.
Well, I was going to say, picking up on both what Christina and Mark have said, I think Laura Ann used to have a really good sort of strategy about, I think, in responding to precisely that. And you just think, social media is social. We're all trying to build a network. We're all trying to build connections. And I remember her a little while ago saying, yes, X, Y, and Z has happened, and now this is my response. And you just think, yeah, good on you, because we all get so bogged down with everything, and messages that take up our time and energy, we can all sort of do without. The other thing I was actually going to pick up on was something that Mark was saying, was in particular, I think visual content and creating really good visual content is a really important element of anybody's sort of social media strategy, because we are such a visual sort of being at the moment, and whether that's video or sort of static images, but if you don't want to be scrolled past, then actually having something that's eye-catching, as I'm sure Christina would also say, it's one of the first things that people sort of hook on, and then they read the post and see whether actually, how does that make me feel, and then you might want to sort of dive a bit more. There's a great Maya Angelou quote, isn't there, about the fact that people might not remember what you said or what you look like, but they certainly remember how you feel. And I think as a brand and as a business, if you can try and make your followers feel that they've got that niche, they've found that right sort of buddy, for want of a better word, with you, then you've got them for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask that. I'll come to you, Christine. You know, in terms of content, should it always be videos? Should it always be images? You know, what, or should it be a blend? How do you decide what to post and how frequently to post on the different platforms as well?
So absolutely, I would go for a blend always. There are different formats. If you think about the best way of describing this without a flip chart at my side. So different formats of content, different mediums. Okay, video, photo, text only, like the carousel posts we see now on LinkedIn. They all get slightly different weighting in the algorithm. So Eleanor said, we all love the visuals, okay, but the reality is that some of us are more visual, some of us are readers, some of us are not. You know, some of us will watch the videos and never really notice anything else. So we need to have a mix to make sure that we are producing something for everyone. So this is why it's really important you have a strategy where it is you're producing one asset, you put your effort into that one asset, and then so like for us, for me, I'm more of a reader than anything else. So I'll write my blog. We then create an image for that. We might create a carousel post for that. I might record a video that relates to that article. But all the effort has gone into producing this one asset, and then we're creating little spin-offs from it. We might take 3 or 4 quotes from within that article to create posts that we use for the following few months, perhaps. So it is about creating that one asset that's really powerful, that can be broken down and repurposed in a multitude of ways. And I think this is the thing as well. Sometimes if we don't take that strategy, we'll say something once and then get frustrated that it hasn't landed with people. Even though we know that if we want someone to really pay attention, we've got to say it like 25 times. You know, it's like a toddler when they really want something. They don't just ask for the sweeties once. They'll ask for the sweeties 25 and a half times, because that's how long it takes to grind us down and get us to say yes. It's the same thing when you're selling a product or a service. You've got to say it so many different times in so many different ways. You know, to bring it back to social media rather than toddlers. The other thing as well is that by using these different formats, you'll start to learn. So I know Mark's content quite often will be longer form in terms of like what he's put, like it's like, what am I talking about? Why am I talking about it? These are the questions. You know, there's lots of ways for people to respond. Mark's only going to be doing that whilst he's getting responses. You know, if he found that actually it's when he delivered the same thing in a video, he got more response, he'd start to lean more towards putting the effort into creating those videos. So it is about doing a mix, trying and testing and understanding. And sometimes you'll find different times of year, different types of content hit better. So
and I think that it's that virtuous circle, isn't it? Of the response comes from providing something that's interesting or gets their attention, but there has to be more than just a hook. There has to be something in there that's interesting for them to expand, and then you know, that goes around again to then becoming something where more people respond to it. Because I think otherwise you've got an empty. Again, it comes back to this whole idea of being genuine and providing genuine help and advice or something of genuine content. Because otherwise you end up with this empty shell of something that's just designed to grab somebody's attention. And one sort of thing I think of is this bandwagon again. I haven't seen it for a while, but for a good number of months there was the thing where somebody does a video from their car, really close up, and I imagine at some point in the early days it might have been whoever did one first. It was because it actually made sense to do so. Maybe they've just come out of a conference. Maybe this is a tiny piece of news that can't wait a few hours to be posted somewhere else. It needs to be communicated now. I've just come out of this meeting. This is really important. I need to convey. You know, that probably made sense. But unless there's any other reason for you to do it in your car rather than do it some other way, it just becomes an empty gesture. Just say, "Oh, everyone else is doing this, so I'll do it."
Yeah.
Just to pick up on something you're saying there, Mark, and just think about the posts that I've seen you put out there. One thing you're really good at is giving your opinion first. Okay, so everyone loves to give their opinion, but nobody likes to be the first person to give their opinion. So you create a post and you say, like, this is happening, what do you think? You'll get tumbleweed. If you say, this is what's happening, this is what I think, do you agree? Do you disagree? Want to know what you're hearing? Because people have got something to like go against. They're more than happy to jump on the keyboard then. But I said, because of the way you position things, and people like connect with Mark, have a look at his previous content, and you'll see what I'm talking about. You know, it is you put something out there people can play with first. And this is I'm a big like all the time. It's whether it's in videos or blogs or whatever, webinars, I talk about you've got to use your voice.
Right.
You've used your voice, now people respond.
Yeah. That's really interesting, because I had no concept I was doing that, I must admit. So it's really interesting.
Well, again, you're just doing it in your natural style. You're not doing anything convoluted. You're just writing it as you would, and that's how it's coming across. Mar is just sort of said great advice. I'm not sure to which piece of advice she was referring, but thanks for tuning in, Mari.
Obviously, it was mine.
Of course, Christine. Eleanor, so do you think that is the what's the question? Let's try and work this out, how to speak English. So can you post too little on social media and or too much on social media? Is there a balance that's going to do you damage one way or the other?
If you listen to what Facebook is saying and things like that, very definitely. If you're not posting regularly enough, then according to their algorithm, your posts are going to get even less traction than they do now. And I think also, there is a balance. I think if you're able to, I think the balance has got to be two things. It's got to be, you've got to be able to commit to doing it, and it's got to be sustainable. And I think the trap that small businesses sort of fall into is either it's like tumbleweed and they post once a month or once every couple of months, or and that's realistically because they actually haven't necessarily dedicated the time to be able to do it, because let's face it, business and all the other things get in the way. So as Christina said earlier, it's having that strategy and that consistency of approach. And I think also, yes, you can post too much. I mean, there were years and years ago, I went to a talk where it was suggested that you had to post to Facebook something like 5 times a day. Let's face it, who's going to create enough content to fill all of that? I mean, it's just, having said that, if you're using Twitter as your platform, because a tweet lasts so fleetingly, then actually there is a strategy there to potentially certainly post multiple times a day. What you also need to try and do is hit that sweet spot as to when your followers are actually on social media. And I would, whenever a client asks me that, I would actually go back to sort of asking them the question, okay, so when do you look at and when are you actually on social media? The chances are you might be on social media first thing in the morning. So that could be any time between, say, 7 o'clock and 8:30. It could be because you're commuting and you spend the time on the train looking through that. You might also then have a lunch break, so you might jump on again sometime between, say, 11:30 and 2:30, and you might then jump on again at the end of the day. Depending on the platform, you might then find that actually you then start posting at those times and just see at which time your content gets the better feed. Christina, I'm sure you have strategies along very similar lines, but it is a bit of trial and error. If it's a decent piece of content, it doesn't really matter when you post it; it will get out there. But it's got to have value. It's got to resonate, and that is something that comes with practice and trial and error. I mean, we've all got where we are through that, and yep, some things work, some things don't. If it doesn't work, bin it, move on to the next thing.
Okay, thank you. I'm conscious of time, so we're going to wrap it up now. I'm sure we could talk about social media all day. I know Christina could, and probably does most of the day talk about social media. So have you got any one final piece of advice for any small business out there? Oh, there we go. We've got a question. I'm trying to wrap it up, Mari. Thanks very much. So can the panel recommend a tool for recording or monitoring that? I think she means the sort of analytics, I guess. Any suggestions on that?
So within Facebook and Instagram, there are sort of various insights and things you can use. On LinkedIn, it's not quite as easy. So I would just say, like, once a week, just have a look at what you've put out that week and just keep an eye on it. Like, we can be as basic as Excel spreadsheets. Okay, now there's, like, we use software for managing all the accounts we do that feeds us that information. But to be honest, when it comes to your personal content on LinkedIn, the data we get is very limited anyway. So just keep an eye on it. And I'd say it's, this is, the day and time that you posted it. You could look at its reach, but also look at the reactions, the number of reactions you've got, number of comments you've got. Because sometimes you could reach 1,000 people and get 5 reactions and 5 comments. Other times you could reach 50 people and get 5 reactions and 5 comments. Yeah. So it's about understanding it from that perspective as well. But yeah, like I said, in terms of good tools that are affordable for SMEs, there really isn't anything. It's the stuff we've got access to is because we're managing 40, 50 different clients and looking at all of that data.
Yeah.
Which is really annoying. I'll be honest with you, it's really, really annoying.
Okay, we'll try and wrap it up again. Hopefully Mari won't ask another question. I'll just ban her if she does. Any final point then from, I'll come to you first, Mark. Any advice you want to give to small businesses that are using social media as a marketing tool?
I'd say visually, obviously going to talk about this side of things, is just be consistent. if somebody can recognize your post easier, sort of subconsciously by scrolling past, they're going to be more likely to stop if they're interested in the sort of content that you're putting out. But it's just about consistency, so people remember and make that connection. But then, yeah, just reiterating, I think what we've spoken about, it's about the genuine, finding some way of genuinely being ussul. We spoke about how many times you could post something. As an example, I get a daily email from somebody, a guy, I think his name is Jonathan Starr, who does the Hourly Billing is Nuts series. And mostly what he's doing is reiterating around the same sort of point, but he does it very interestingly. Most people I would have unsubscribed if they were sending me a daily email, because it would be annoying. But what he's sending me, I like. So, it's finding something. If you can do it and you can provide genuinely useful content, then fine. And the same would be for the social media side of things, is how much you can find the thing you can do consistently. There's no point having 1 month where you do 500 posts and the next 6 months you do one. You've got to be consistent in that sense, but also make sure that it's stuff that people want to hear about. It's useful.
Excellent. Eleanor, any one last thing from you?
I was going to say is that if you are confident, say, doing LinkedIn and you're considering doing Instagram or Twitter, spend a bit of time actually on that platform, looking for businesses or other organizations that are similar to yours, and actually get to know the interface before you actually start posting as your business. So yeah, just listen and learn, and pick up things as you go along, and then you can build on it. And I would also always say do one thing first, do it really well, and then build on to your next thing. Run before you can walk. Sorry, walk before you can run.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Christina?
I think I'd just say don't chase perfection.
Mm-hmm.
It's if you could figure out the perfect topic to write about with the perfect image that you posted at the perfect time on the perfect platform, 24 hours later it's all going to change anyway. So it is this, don't wait to get things perfect before you start this activity, because you'll then never get anything out there. The content that works best is the content that is very much created in the moment. The images that work best are the ones that you took on your phone and you didn't do your makeup that day, your hair's in a mess, there's something happens in the background, and people respond to real. Marketers have ruined the word authentic, right? But essentially that is what works. So you want to have some polished stuff in there, imagery wise, video wise, but don't only post that stuff. Remember to keep it human. Remember that it's never going to be perfect, and just be really clear on what you want out of it.
Yeah,
Go for that.
Yeah, you guys disappointed me at the start when you said pretty much collectively said it's about getting your personality out there. So in the absence of having one, I'm pretty much buggered, aren't I, really? So,
but that's cool. Just show the world that you haven't got one. Like attracts like, Paul.
Thank you. So next week, we're going to have an operations and resources flavour, and we're actually going to be looking at how should SMEs be best managing the data in their business. So it's every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Hopefully you guys can tune into that, whoever's listening and watching this as I speak. So thank you to my experts today. Thanks